Pledge. We will now be moving on to roll call. President Fish. Here. Vice President Fees is here. Secretary Wadsworth. Here. Chief Justice Tabor has been excused. College Counsel Rossi. Here. Director Reynolds is not here. Director Tanner is excused. Director Nolan. Here. Senator DeHaab. Here. Senator Rogers. Senator Wallachy. Here. Senator Self. Here. Senator Guntert has been excused. Senator Yella. Senator Totino. Here. Senator Rosamilia. Here. Pro Temp Schnorr. Here. Our advisor. CFB. Here. Wildcat Media. Here. The Factory Times is not here. Web is not here. Wildcat Esports. Our SAC rep is not here. And ResLife is not here. We will now be moving on to the approval of minutes. Do we have any discussion on the approval of minutes? Webb is here. Do we have any discussion on the approval of minutes? Seeing none, we will go on to voting for the minutes. All those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain? This passes, hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 0, 0. We will now be moving on to announcements. There are no announcements. We'll now be moving on to guest speakers. There are any guest speakers today. On to executive reports. President Fish.
No report.
Moving on to the Vice President report. Hello, everybody. Head committee met on Tuesday where we discussed the future of all of SGU's committees and as well as address some concerns regarding how our committees run. I will continue to work to streamline the process and ensure that all committees continue to work at their fullest, not only this year, but next year. Thank you. Moving on to our secretary.
Hi everyone, I promised to make it short this week. I just wanted to announce about the Student Recognition Gala that will be occurring on April 21st at Harts Hill Inn at 5:30. I encourage you all to attend as everyone in this horseshoe does have a ticket reserved for them. You can pick that up preferably before Tuesday, April 11th at 2 o'clock. If you don't pick it up by then, you do have a chance that your ticket won't be reserved at that point, as we do have to make room for some other students at the gala. So I recommend that you pick it up before then. You can pick it up in the Center for Student Involvement from Lori, and she'll help you walk you through that entire process. Reminder for clubs, you all have 2 tickets reserved for you, so it is the president's job to figure out who those 2 tickets will be going to within their club. Transportation will be provided, so don't worry about that. It is semi-formal attire. If you have any questions for me, I am always available here. You can also email me at wadswobe@sunypoly.edu. Thank you. I yield.
Moving on to our Chief Justice. He is absent today. We will be moving on to College Counsel Rossi. Our Director of Public Relations. Our Director of Community Outreach. Moving on to our Director of Wellness and Inclusion, our advisor. We will now be moving on to committee reports, Academic Affairs and Technology Committee.
Hope everyone is doing well this week. As stated last week, myself and President Fish will be meeting with the provost tomorrow to talk about the professors keeping student grades up to date and to discuss the possibility of implementing UDL to psych and social majors. Also, don't forget tomorrow there will be a self-defense event from 12 to 2. Come on by and learn how to defend yourself with Thomas Arkiri from Bailey's Karate. I had joined the Distance Learning Committee and had joined in the talks about the Bright Space transition again. So for an update, there will be roles that professors can request for TAs in their courses that can have varying roles. They will also be releasing access to students to access an orientation course in Bright Space This has not been officially announced as they're just trying to get everything still settled with it. Courses will also be organized by semester as it is seen on Blackboard, just not as spread apart. It will be condensed. If anyone has questions, feel free to email me at any time with questions at sclphl@sunypoly.edu. The committee also had a meeting today to discuss some other concerns with Brightspace. The committee will also be meeting for 2023 in the SGU conference room at 11 to 12, or email me and I will send you a link to join us via Microsoft Teams. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you. We'll be moving on to budget committee.
Everybody, the budget is still on the table, and we're going to be discussing some new changes that we want to make. Specifically to web is probably one of the biggest. Other than that, our next step is working on the stipends for this semester.
Thank you. Moving on to class gift.
Don't forget, come down to the class gift committee on Fridays at 2:30. You really won't regret it. It's really cool. Please show up. Also, I'm just going to dox him real quick. Today is College Council Nick Rossi's birthday. I'll yield.
Alrighty, moving on to game room committee. We will now be moving on to DEI and wellness.
That we are having a wellness fair on the 18th from 11 to 2 in the campus center. We are also planning a deaf awareness movie night as we are in Deaf Awareness Month, so be on the lookout for that. But with that being said, one more reminder that meetings are 9 to 10 on Mondays in the SGU conference room. You can always feel free to email me with questions or concerns at totinob@sunypoly.edu.
Moving on to food committee.
Good afternoon. Hope everyone is enjoying the day. I would like to announce that the painting event that happened went really well, and it was a great time to socialize and be creative. Also, we have been talking about revamping the island in the campus center. The island is simply where the sandwich station is, and where the ice cream is served. The reason for this was that we thought we could add a Mongolian grill and cooking materials. As far as I know, it would be a great time to show students what is being cooked right in front of them. Students can learn how to cook with the chefs so long as they follow the safety guidelines and procedures that the chef will give out and teach. For now, this is our idea, and we will look further into this. If you have any questions or comments, you can email me at rosamip@sunypoly.edu or the committee's email sgufoodservice@sunypoly.edu. Thank you. I yield.
We'll now be moving on to policy. For policy committee, we've been looking at important updates to our election policy as well as some constitutional changes. For our election, I've reached out to SUNY Binghamton to talk to their judiciary and election committee, and hopefully these individuals will be able to provide some insight into their process to streamline everything. That's all I have today. Thank you. Moving on to safety and facilities.
Some of the smaller issues we've noticed on campus, and we'll be meeting again today at 2:30 in the SGU conference room. All are invited to attend. Thank you.
We'll now be moving on to org reports. Web. Moving on to CFB.
So we just had our egg hunt that ended. About $900 wasn't found just due to the fact that probably people were like, ooh, an egg, let me go throw it out. So we're hosting a new Kahoot that's going to go on the 17th for clubs to get that $900, and Ava will be doing her part on budgeting for the clubs. I will do my part on how clubs can re-register, how they can get more funding, how they can really work on knowing what the club's supposed to do for the CFB aspect, and we hope that we have a good turnout. I yield.
Moving on to Wildcat Media.
Hello everybody. Wildcat Media has our upcoming dance on the 14th from 7 to 9:30 p.m. in the campus center, second floor. I hope everyone can attend. Thank you.
Alrighty, moving on to the Factory Times. Wildcat Esports.
All right, so I just wanted to give a couple details on our largest event this semester, FragFest, our big LAN event. So it's happening here tomorrow, starting at 2 p.m. and it ends at on Sunday at 2:30 p.m. So here in the NPR. So we have a lot of raffle prizes. A couple of them are we have a couple Steam Decks, some monitors, a lot of computer peripherals, and some more stuff. And we have about a dozen tournaments happening throughout the day, across a wide span of video game genres. It doesn't matter if you're a professional, if you're just touching a keyboard for the first time. We'd love for you to participate. We also secured some laptops from Dell for demo. So if you don't have a setup, you can always borrow some of those. If you have any questions, email us at wildcatesports@sunypoly.edu, and we have a lot more information on our Discord server as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Our reports have been concluded, so we'll now be moving on to new business, old business, I'm sorry. Senate Bill number 2223-32, Senator Rosamelia.
We, the members, motion to accept bill number 2223-32.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Totino.
We, the members of the student government at Utica of SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to amend Article 9, Organization of Student Organizations. I yield.
Do we have any discussion on this bill? CFB.
So I feel that the signatures of 100 is a little low because signatures are really easy. SGU as a whole, when you guys do your elections, you require 10% of the student body to vote on you guys. I also think that if a club or whatever wants to become an org, they should also abide by that 10% student body because orgs require the student body. They do the student body. CFB does the student body. Web goes for the student body. So I think that it should be raised to 10%, whatever that number may be, and not 100, because that can easily be done in a day, and any club that maybe doesn't cater to the whole thing, so if it was an IMDG club, they only cater to IMGD majors or CS majors, so I think it should be raised. I yield.
Our audience member.
I also agree with the 100 signatures being ridiculously low. There's easily 100 people in all of my classes, and I could easily convince 100, probably 200 people on campus that I want to make Mahjong Club and org. I think there's only 15 people on campus who know what Mahjong is or how to play Mahjong. But, you know, with 100 signatures, it just seems a little weak. And I think Anthony actually brings up a good point. You could probably add it into the election. Because the org has, you know, the point of an org is that they have more responsibilities. It's supposed to be bigger. It's supposed to impact more of the campus. So I think you should be really getting more of the student voices. So you could even like add something into the election maybe that says that, you know, this, you know, group wants to become an org. You know, if they get so many of the votes, then they get to become an org. So I think that would be a little more, you know, it's because orgs are held to that higher standard. It's a little more than just getting 100 people to say sign a piece of paper. You know, I yield.
Do we have any further discussion? Senator Self.
And our audience member as, yeah, easily any of us could go out there, grab 100 signatures, bring it here, be like, hey, we want to become an org. It's so easy. I would think we would want to hold it to a bit of a higher standard because if someone was, say, one of our low-level clubs did get all the 100 signatures and we sit there and they're here like, hey, we did it, and we go, no. That's kind of like, we should hold it to the same standards as, say, getting most of the student body to vote of saying, hey, I'd like to see them as an org. Because it just seems like, because they got to show the dedication, it just can't be, hey, I'm here just to become an org, and then where they disappear to. I yield.
Our president.
Yes, sir. I actually like those 2 points. And I've been working with the executive board and then eventually policy, writing up a different organization document. So I'd like to ask the Senate if they would table this indefinitely because there's going to be a new bill coming up.
Senator Self.
Motion to table this bill indefinitely.
Motion to table this bill indefinitely from Senator Self. Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Rosamelia. Do we have any discussion on tabling this indefinitely? Seeing none, does anybody oppose unanimous consent? Seeing none, the tabling passes 8-0-0. We will now be moving on to Senate Bill number 23-33, Senator Rogers.
Bill number 2223-33.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Self.
We, the members of student government at Utica, SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to update and amend the Director of Human Relations and Development contract for the student government at Utica.
Do we have any discussion on this bill? Seeing none, we will, President Fish.
I'd like to just add a method point. I just have to find it real quick. I apologize. I lost it.
Do we have
All right, so
President Fish?
so I'd like to add under methods a bullet point that states amend subsection 3.7.0, and that subsection or that section states the college council position. Oh no, never mind. I yield.
You rescind?
Yeah, I rescind. Sorry.
Okay. Do we have any further discussion? Seeing none, we will be moving on to voting for this. All those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain? That passes 8-0-0. We will be moving on to bill number 2223-34. Senator Gunter is not here, so we'll be moving on to Pro Temp Schnorr.
Motion to accept Senate Bill number 2223-34.
Do I have a second? Or no, I don't need a second. I'm sorry. You may proceed.
We, the members of the student government at Utica of SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to update the current policies and procedures.
Do we have any discussion? President Fish.
I'd like to entertain a motion to amend section 3.7.0, which states the college council position in SGU shall be responsible for attending all SUNY Poly college council meetings, SUNY Poly Foundation Board meetings, SGU executive meetings, and SGU Senate meetings. I'd like to change that to executive to cabinet instead of executive.
Do I have a so moved? So moved by Senator Rosamelia. Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Yella. Do we have any discussion on this? Senator Rogers.
So I guess, can I just ask about the rationale behind that change and what's the motivating factor behind it?
President Fish.
So it just changes. So the overall change just changes executive meetings to cabinet meetings. The college council isn't an executive member, but he is considered, or they are considered part of the cabinet, and they are automatically allowed to go to the cabinet meetings. The executive meetings are strictly by invite only because they are private, confidential meetings.
Senator Self.
What bill are we on?
We are on Bill 34. Okay. It's the policies and procedures revamp. I'm not sure. Senator Rosamelia.
What section did you just say? I yield to President, our President.
3.7.0.
Thank you.
And again, changing the word executive to cabinet.
Do we have any further discussion?
Yes.
Our audience member.
2223-34.
Is it?
Because I got confused. I have the agenda on my phone.
I have it as 34 on my agenda.
And that's the one, the policies and procedures revamping.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So I do have a problem with this one. My issue with this one is the amendment to Article, I think that's 18. I can't remember so fast.
We are in a motion.
Okay.
Thank you. To clarify the motion, this is changing Article 3.7.0. It's an entertained motion from Jay Fish. So moved by Senator Rosamelia, seconded by Senator Yella. The motion is to change the college council position to they are invited to the cabinet meetings, but not the executive meetings. Do we have any discussion on that? Seeing none, we will now be moving on to voting. All those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain. That passes 702. Alrighty, moving on to other discussion. Our audience member.
Okay, I got it this time. I got confused because I didn't see the part that you were amending. My problem with this one is the second big bullet point under amendments. It says any member who does not follow the proper resignation outline will not receive any graduation regalia. It just seems a little mean-spirited in my mind. So I was in SGU for 4 years and then I quit suddenly. You know, my reasoning was because I wasn't comfortable who was supervising me. And I think that just because I wasn't comfortable coming in to sign my resignation, because this was before you could submit it electronically, as far as I understand, that my 4 years of work doesn't get to be acknowledged at graduation, and that just seems a little harsh. I can understand, like, the logic behind it, but it just seems a little harsh. You know, usually if people are resigning on the spot without any, you know, information, it's not because, you know, maybe there are fringe cases where it's because they're mean, and maybe there's fringe cases where this would make sense, but I think most of the time it's because the person above them is not someone they're comfortable working with or something like that. It's something that's not really, you know, they're not doing it because they hate it. I didn't do it because I hate SGU. You know, I was there for 4 years, obviously. I appreciated, and I would like, you know, speaking as someone who this would have affected, you know, down the line, it would be nice to, you know, make sure that the people who do work for SGU get their work recognized, regardless of what, you know, happens in the end. I yield.
Senator Wadsworth.
That was my addition to this bill, and I did that because what I anticipated for this was when we have people that are representing SGU that don't fully represent the values that we have, that are and tend to unfortunately leave us very suddenly without following proper resignation, with not you at all. I didn't believe it was right that these people that, you know, don't care about SGU as much as we all do, and don't resign properly, they shouldn't be the ones to represent SGU with regalia. So I totally understand where you're coming from, and I hear that completely. I was worried that we were going to have people that were not resigning properly that didn't value the point of SGU and what we do here, and, you know, totally unlike our audience member here, value what we do, and truthfully, frankly, don't show up to meetings, aren't vocal, aren't willing to participate in things like that. I didn't think it was right that they would be represented under SGU by any means at graduation. Similarly to how they also won't receive a stipend when they don't resign properly, I thought it was fair that we also wouldn't be paying for the regalia and representing them at graduation. So I'll yield to our audience member.
Yeah, I think it's a little subjective when it comes to resignation. You know, everyone resigns for their own reason. So I think maybe if you looked at it more case by case, because you can't, I mean, with something like the CFB policies and procedures, you can't catch every, you know, fringe case because there's so many things that happen, that kind of thing. And so I think maybe looking at it case to case would be smart. But I also think that, like, you know, let's say I'm in SGU for 3 years, and then my 4th year, you know, everything else changes and I'm still here, and then, you know, it looks like I don't care, or, you know, it looks like I'm this outspoken, like, you know, anti-SGU person, but really I just want to make sure that it's working the way it had been working the previous years. I think it's really, like, you know, I think it's hard to make a catch-all for something like this. I think it's really, like, case by case. So I think you should just be really careful to not, like, discredit the work that people are doing. Because even if you just have, you know, a bad semester, a bad year, and you leave, I don't think that that, you know, means that you you weren't representing SGU throughout your entire thing before then. And so I think you should just take that into consideration before you pass something like this. I yield.
Do we have any further discussion? Secretary Wadsworth.
Can I entertain a motion to change the second bullet under methods to state any member who does not submit a resignation form will not receive any graduation regalia. And I'm going to do this, I'll make the motion and then I'll talk a little bit on it.
Do I have a so moved? So moved by Senator Gunter. Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Rosamelia. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Secretary Wadsworth.
So I thought maybe this would be better, so that way if people aren't in certain situations, they may not be comfortable submitting a 10, in some emergency situations where maybe they, because of academics or personal reasons, they need to resign effective immediately. As long as we have that resignation form, I think that it is fair that they receive that regalia. I'll yield.
Do we have any discussion? Senator Yella. President Fish.
Just the date of resignation and then your signature.
Do we have any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we will move on to voting for the motion. All those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain? That passes 9-0-0. Back into discussion of the bill. Our audience member.
Just a thing about the attachments, you shouldn't just put a link for stuff, because the issue is that if your link dies, they'll never have access to your Google Drive, so they take out. Eventually, you'll get kicked from your school Google Drive because they don't want to pay for your school Google Drive anymore. So with the attachments just being 2023-24 running policies and procedures as a link, you should probably switch it to like an actual copy. And I know that's annoying because it's like 1 billion pages long, and it makes the agenda long, but it's just to make sure that when, people go back and they look at the bills and resolutions, that they actually have the actual thing to reference. I yield.
Our president.
Yeah, so thank you for that. But we do keep our Google accounts when we graduate. We keep them indefinitely unless you don't pay the alumni fee. So other than that, you have access to your SUNY Poly email and your Google Drive. That's part of the benefits of paying the alumni fee.
Our audience member.
So you should still have an actual copy in the agenda and not a link. It's a link. It's a link. A link can die.
Audience members are only allowed to speak once per bill unless they're yielded to. For our policies.
1.5.1, I'm not. It says all members, including the audience and guests, will be recognized for a maximum of 5 minutes per piece of legislation, and I don't believe that she has gone over that. I'm gonna Wildcat Media.
Audience member.
Thank you.
I think you should have something other than a link. It has been the way we have done it. Last year, we would never allow a link to be in your attachments. I'm just saying you need to future-proof your stuff, and with having a link, the link can die, can do weird things. Just, I don't care, I guess. Either put a link, put an attachment, do whatever, but it would be smarter not having a link. I yield.
Alrighty, do we have any further discussion on the bill? Senator Rogers.
So, I guess on the topic of the link, I'm not even sure this is a link. This is an inserted file on Google Docs. Just as a note, this is actually unopenable on PC.
Do we have any further discussion? CFB.
My personal opinion on this is just that if we were to do something like that, maybe have the PDF attached via email to people, because there are some people that maybe don't want to be associated via alumni but still want to be associated for maybe siblings and stuff like that. So maybe to entertain an idea of next time just pinpointing specific points that would be more useful. That way people don't have to sift through 100+ pages, and that way they can still just have a direct thing. I yield.
Do we have any further discussion on this piece of legislation? Seeing none, we will be moving on to voting. All those in favor of this legislation? All those who oppose? And all those, may I call for a revote on that? We're voting on the bill. So we're voting on the whole policies and procedures revamp 2223-34. Yes, we did. You're good. Alrighty. Okay. All those in favor of the policies and procedures revamp? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain? This piece of legislation passes 9-0-0. We will now be moving on to Senate Bill number 2223-17. Senator Rosamelia.
Motion to accept Senate Bill number 2223-17.
This does not need a second. You may proceed.
We, the members of the student government at Utica of SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to amend Article 9 petitions in the SGU policies and procedures. I yield.
Do we have any discussion on this piece of legislation? Senator Rogers.
Gonna bring up 1190 as I did the last time before we tabled this. I still am not entirely certain what this is supposed to be targeted towards. Article 9 does not affect signatures that are not collected by a member who wishes to run in any election. That's still the double negative that effectively doesn't count anything, isn't it?
Do we have any further discussion? Senator Self.
I'm reading through this, and I just want this is I guess a point of clarification. 11.2.2, when read it, that it says petitions or signatures that aren't read during open forum shall be deemed invalid. Do you mean when if they have to read signatures, they have to read every single name? Because that could be misinterpreted really quickly. I
President
yield.
Fish.
No, you're reading what the petition is for. Yeah, that policy isn't highlighted because it's already in the. Oh no, never mind. Sorry, I'm wrong.
Do we have any further discussion? CFB.
Maybe just on Senator Self's point of just adjusting the wording a little bit, just so the clarification of confusion is done. So petitioner's signature, the petition of what's going on per se. I'm not using the right wording because I don't write bills like that. But petitions of this specific nature should be read in this manner, which would be a little easier to understand rather than signatures. Because like Senator Self, I'm like, okay, so I have to read every single signature of a 220-point thing. I yield.
President Fish.
That's a good point. So I'll entertain a motion to change, the bullet point 11.2.2 to say the purpose of petitions or signatures. No, I guess that petitions or signatures that are read during open forum. So can I change it to say petitions or signatures that aren't read during open forum shall be deemed invalid until the purpose is formally read?
Do I have a so moved? So moved by Senator Rosamelia. Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Yella. Do we have any discussion on this point? Seeing none, we'll be moving on to voting for this. All those in favor of this change? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain. That passes 8-0-1. Moving back onto the discussion of the bill. Senator Rogers.
I'm going to ask the question towards literally anybody who wrote this, if they could explain what 1190 is supposed to do, because I'm going to break down my reading of this. As I read it, Article 9 does not affect, and we're going to put that to the side, because that's just saying that's a negative. Signatures that are not collected by a member who wishes to run in any election, which would be any petition that is not an election petition. Then we add the not. So it does not affect any petition that is not an election petition. So it only affects election petitions. So are we not going to be checking petitions that are literally any other way? And I'll yield to literally anybody who can answer that one for me.
Secretary Wadsworth.
I'm going to actually ask, I'm going to yield to the president. Do you, the second one? Okay, so I will entertain a motion to change it to say, this article does not affect signatures that are collected by a member who wishes to run in any election, with the exception of 11.4.1.
Do I have a so moved? So moved by Senator Rogers. Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Walke. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, does anybody oppose unanimous consent to the motion? Seeing none, this passes 9-0-0. Back on to discussion of the bill. Seeing no further discussion on this bill, we will not be voting on this. This is in old business. We will now be moving on to Resolution 2223-34. Senator DeHaab.
Number 2223-34.
Alrighty, this does not need a second.
We, the Senate of SUNY Poly Student Government at Utica, do hereby resolve. This resolution creates a budget for the student government at Utica and its subsidiary student organization for 2023-2024 academic year. Whereas the SGU Budget Committee voted in favor of sending the proposed budget to the SGU Senate, therefore be enacted, the SGU Senate fully support and endorse the attached budget to be the operating budget for the year 2022-2023, therefore be it resolved. Be it finally resolved, this budget will allow SGU and its subsidiary to carry out their mission statements and cater to the student of SUNY Poly.
Do I have any discussion on the resolution? CFB.
Just in regards, I know we already talked about this before, into the link, maybe just posting like a PDF like photo of it, like a snip and sketch of it, just so like we can see it, the breakdown a little better, just in case people don't have access to the link, or maybe are just like, whatever, like they're not gonna actually look at it, so maybe just a quick snippet of it would be a little better. I yield.
Is this supposed to be 2022, 2023, or this should be 2023? Alrighty, is there any other discussion? Senator Self.
I didn't even notice this last week until I was looking through this again. I was looking at the salaries, line 002, building managers. I thought that was supposed to go under CSI, not student government. That's what was agreed upon last semester when Sean was talking with Ben and all them about this. I yield.
President Fish.
No, that was, we were doing a pilot program with that, so we're going to continue that program under the student government because it has been successful so far.
Do we have any further discussion? Senator Rogers.
So I'm going to tell a little bit of a story. A few months ago, I was trying to find a recording of one of these meetings, and I noticed that there were several mics that aren't recording. I'm not going to say who I spoke to, but I did speak to a member of media and asked about if they could do a mic check beforehand, and I was told that a lot of the equipment is not in the greatest of shape, and now I'm noticing that a large amount of the equipment budget is being slashed out. Is there an intention to use that before the slashing happens, or is that not actually much of a concern? I'll yield to anybody.
Do we have any discussion? Wildcat Media.
The reason our budget is being cut is because our studio equipment line for this year, we still have around 18 grand left that we haven't used. I mean, if Senate wants us to just make a proposal for a bunch of new mics, we can do that, but we just got these ones, but yeah, so it's just, we currently have a lot of money we're not using.
Do we have any further discussion? Senator Self.
Just curious on just prices. If we were to say we were to go look at some new mics, what would be like the recommended mic and what would be the cost of just one? Just one. I can do the math for however many we would actually have to get. Just one and give an estimate on that. I yield.
Do we have any further discussion?
I yield to Nick.
Hello. To talk about the problem with this is it's not just the mics is the problem. This is a cheap thing that pretty much we could afford. Even if we were to spend everything on it, it'd be a lot more complicated, first of all, and second, it would be a lot more money than we probably actually have to get a whole new thing.
President Fish.
So what I would recommend is if you have the 18 grand now, to buy the new equipment this semester, and then you'd still be saving money next semester. But that's a recommendation to the Senate.
Do we have any further discussion? Wildcat Media.
We'll do that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Is that, you're just putting the mic back? Okay. Seeing none, we'll now be voting on the, Senator Self.
You want to bring up any of the changes we made last budget committee? Because I don't know if anyone's noticed some of the changes, but I feel like getting the Senate informed on some of these changes other than the ones that weren't there. I yield to the president.
So the biggest change, I just had a typo in line 803 auxiliary services fee. I had 25 in there, and it was only increasing by 2,000 instead of an extra $500. But that is really the most significant changes that we did make.
Is there any further discussion on the resolution? President Fish?
So I've been in talks with a couple of people about events next year. So I'd like to entertain a motion to add the $3,000 back into line 305 on the web budget. It's under contracted events.
Do I have a so moved? So moved by Senator Self. Second. Seconded by Senator Yella. Do we have any discussion change? Seeing none, we'll now be going on to voting for this change. All those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain. That passes 9-0-0. Back onto discussion of the resolution. Seeing no further discussion, we will now be voting on the resolution for the budget. All those who approve? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain. The budget passes 9-0-0. We will now be moving on to Senate Resolution 2223-30. Call for a revote. All those in favor of the budget? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain. That passes 9-0-0. We will now be moving on to Resolution 2223-36. Senator Totino. Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Rosamilia. You may proceed.
This resolution is to donate $25,000 towards the improvement of the Learning Center, whereas students have voiced recommendations about this space to the student government and President Fish and Chair Self met with the Office of Academic Success about the Learning Center improvements, and President Fish, Chair Self, and the Academic Success Office and Provost worked to create an online survey collecting feedback about the space, and several students filled out and submitted this form with feedback about the space, and student government at Utica pulled $25,000 from reserves to support these updates, therefore be enacted. Student government at Utica will use no more than $25,000 to support the updates within the Learning Center by purchasing the following items: armchairs, $2,500, area sofa, $2,000, standing desk, $2,000, desk chairs, $8,000, lounge seat, $8,000, the total of $22,500, therefore be enacted. Student government at Utica will purchase the following materials to update the learning space.
Do we have any discussion on the resolution? Senator Self.
I'm sorry, Bela had to constantly say my name like that. It sounds very awkward hearing someone say Chair Self. That is horribly awkward. But I'm looking at the attachment. Is it accidentally missing one of the items in there, or?
President Fish.
Yeah, it didn't come up, so I'm looking for that right now, and I actually have that. So I'm gonna send that picture to all of you shortly.
Senator Gunter.
In that attachment, it's just listing one of them instead of four. It's below
Do we have any further discussion?
I yield to President Fish.
Thank you.
He meant what the item looked like. The reason why it listed 1 was because when I got the quote, I only quoted it for 1. So if you go back up to the enacted, you can see that we're getting 4, which are considered the lounge seats, and they're about $8,000 for the 4 of them.
Do we have any further discussion? Senator Yella. President Fish.
Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up. So I did go to the library to talk about this, and I have seen the chairs there. So why we're buying the chairs, they are pretty bad. Most of them are pretty old as well, older than the building, or just about the same age. And 50 chairs is actually the exact amount. I did think it was a little much, but I did, with the help of some people from the Learning Center, count all of the chairs that were needed, and it did come out to 50. What we do plan on doing is then replacing the chairs in the computer lab that's also in the library with the older chairs. So any chairs that are even in worse condition in the computer lab, changing them out with the better ones, if that makes sense.
Do we have any further discussion on this? Our audience member.
Just like to remind the Senate, since we're putting, stuff into an outside room, that they also promised to put clocks into the classrooms. And I understand it's a 5-year plan, but this is the end of year 1 and nothing has happened. So, maybe we should make sure we have other projects moving before we start other ones. I don't think it's a bad idea at all, but, make sure all your ducks are in a row. I yield.
Do we have any further discussion on the resolution? Senator Rosamelia.
Point of information, what would be the purpose of the standing desk? I yield to President.
So it gives students a little bit more flexibility in how they want to sit or stand in this case. The plan is to put them in front of the windows in the library. So there's a couple of windows that veer out in a V shape or a triangle shape. And they'll be put in those so then you can stand up and look outside the windows and stuff like that.
Do I have any further discussion on the resolution? Senator South.
And I actually know this from seeing my mother have one. Stand-in desks are a little bit, some people don't like sit-in. I'm personally one of those people that don't like to sit for a long time. So a stand-in desk is nice because it's nice and friendly. You can stand there. You can do a little, say if you want to just jog in place, you can do that while there. It's nicer, and it just fits a lot of people if they're active and they don't like sitting for long. I yield.
Do I have any further discussion on the resolution? President Fish.
I did email the Senate with the link. I forgot to even put a subject or anything on there. But just for reference, that link goes to the Intivity quote that we have at the bottom.
Do I have any further discussion? Seeing none, we will now be moving on to voting for the resolution. All those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain. This passes 8-0-1. We will now be moving on to the next bill, bill number 2223-35, Senator Rogers.
Senate Bill number 2223-35.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Yella.
We, the members of the student government at Utica of SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to add Article 21, Conduct, Appearance, and Standards, CAS.
Do I have any discussion? Senator Rogers.
I don't know, in general, this is kind of vague. Like, I think
Senator
a lot of these are handled in other locations. Is this just a consolidation effort, or? I'll yield to our president.
I was just going to ask what point
It's kind of in generally vague. I mean, I don't know if these are necessarily written somewhere, something that we all assume already. I guess I'll yield back to the president.
Yeah, so 13 isn't really written anywhere. Again, it's assumed. And then 21.5.3, that one is, again, kind of assumed, but not really written down anywhere specific. 0.5.4, again, it's assumed, but it's not really written anywhere solid. 21.5.5, that one is not written anywhere. So we've typically said give your direct supervisors a 48-hour notice, but it's never written down anywhere. I wanted to do that one vague because I felt odd putting a certain time on it, but we could definitely make that amendment if necessary. And then the last one again isn't in there. It's most likely under Robert's rules, but it's not anywhere. I'll yield to our secretary.
Oh, sorry, I have a mic. I have a question about 21.5.4 and the logistics of it, I guess. So as a senator even, some of them don't have access to our financial transactions within Engage. We all know that there are some purchases that have not gone through the Senate, that have not even been used properly. But how are those supposed to be seen by the student body? I'll yield to our president.
That's a good point. So the case that she's talking about is the reason why I kind of wrote that. But now that I see that point, I definitely understand. I'm going to entertain a motion to strike out 21.5.4.
Do I have a so moved? So moved by Senator Guntert. Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Rosamelia. Do I have any discussion on this motion? Audience? Okay. Seeing none, we will now be moving on to voting for this. All those in favor of striking out 21.5.5? Is it 0.5?
0.4.
0.4, thank you. 21.5.4, striking out. All those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain? I'm going to call for revote on that. I wasn't sure if it was a yes or a no. All those who approve, please raise your hand super high so I can see you. Thank you. All those who approve, all those who oppose, and all those who abstain. That passes 8-0-1. Back into discussion of the bill. Our audience member.
I would like to go off what Senator Rogers said. A lot of the pieces are really vague. The first one, 2113, just says you won't use your position to gain personal advantages. It's I get what you're trying to say, but it's just a little too vague, you know. And then with 21.5.6, taking vacation time, which is something that's in the policy procedures, you're allowed to take a week off if you give notice and that kind of stuff, does directly impede with the functioning of SGU, especially if you're a higher up member. So I don't know if that's it's kind of clashing language between the two things. So I don't know. That's just my thought. I yield.
Do we have any further discussion? Senator Rosamelia.
Point of information: wouldn't most of these bullets be written in position contracts? I yield to the floor.
President Fish.
No, this would be under the conduct. It could be in it, but putting it under the policies in general is going to just make it so then everybody who signs a contract has to abide by it.
Secretary Wadsworth.
Further as well. So your contract is pretty much your duties and what you do as a senator or as a member, but then the policies is pretty much going to be how to perform that way and how to be an appropriate member of the student government and how to represent the student government. Does that answer it? Okay.
Do we have any further discussion? Senator Sal.
Our audience member did bring up a good point about 21.5.6 because technically if we do take a vacation, it impedes our activities. So should we maybe add a subsection to that saying if you're on vacation, something like I just came to mind and now it's gone. I yield.
President Fish.
So our vacation policy does state that if you go on vacation for that week, you have to appoint especially if you're in the executive, you have to appoint somebody to fulfill your duties for that week.
Do we have any further discussion? Senator Sal.
So just say it's just a senator, not a co-chair, not a chair. Would he have how would that resolve then if he was to appoint? They were to appoint someone to fill in their spot because I don't think we have a senator play two roles at one time. I yield to the president.
Your then run it. So technically, really, when a committee chair can't attend a meeting, the co-chair is supposed to take that over.
Senator South.
Misinterpreted what I said. You're not a chair. You're not a co-chair. You're just plain old senator. Plain old. No, you have no other responsibilities other than you're at this meeting. You are the voting member. How would that be resolved under if they were doing that? So it's not like I say Will is taking my votes per meeting and he's voting twice for a normal senator. I yield.
President Fish.
So because you're not directly voting on anything in a committee meeting, I personally would say that's okay because it would still have to get passed through the General Senate. Am I not understanding?
So, say I'm a senator. I'm not a co-chair. I'm not a chair, but I come to the Senate. I come to the Senate meetings to vote on legislation.
Okay.
I'm going on vacation.
Okay.
I appoint Lori to come to as my person that is going to fulfill my duties, but she can't vote. So how is that?
I apologize, Senator Self. I apologize.
Do we have any further discussion? President Fish.
So that's something that I would bring up to policy, possibly, because that's something that we definitely overlooked writing the vacation policy. So thank you for bringing that up. And Senator Self, I apologize for misinterpreting so many times.
Senator Gunchert. This will not be voted on this week. Did you want to maybe table it to policy? I don't know. I'm going to let you. Do you have a second to table it for 1 week? Seconded by Senator Rogers. Do we have any discussion on tabling this for 1 week? Senator Self.
I mean, other than tabling it for 1 week, it'll remain in new business, but then the week after it'll be going into old business. Technically, we still have 1 week with this bill next week. I yield.
Do we have any further discussion on tabling this bill? Seeing none, we will now go on to voting for the tabling of this bill. All those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain? That does not pass. 180. Moving back onto discussion of the bill. President Fish.
This is, again, up to the Senate. But what you could also do is amend the vacation policy inside of this bill, or you can write a different bill amending the vacation policy.
Do we have any further discussion on this bill? Seeing none, we will not be voting on this. This is in new business. We will be moving on to bill number 2223-36. Senator DeHaab.
Motion to accept bill number 2223-36.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Rosamelia.
We, the members of the student government at Utica of SUNY Poly, as presented in the Senate, do enact as follow. The purpose of this bill is to rework the resignation process.
Do we have any discussion on this bill? Senator Rosamelia. Seeing no, Senator Rogers.
This has the same thing we discussed in the previous policies and procedures update regarding regalia. I don't know if we want to change that again now, or if we think that's in the same wording as we would prefer. I guess I'll just yield with that statement.
Do we have any further discussion? Seeing none, we will be. Does anybody want? President Fish.
Yeah, I'll entertain a motion to change 8.2.3 to state that the member will not receive regalia at graduation if they do not submit a resignation form.
Do I have a so moved? So moved by Pro Temp Schnorr. Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Walke. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, does anybody oppose unanimous consent? Seeing that, we will be moving on to voting. All those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain. That passes 8-0-1. Moving back into discussion of the bill. Seeing no discussion, we will now be moving on to the next bill. Bill number 2223-37, Senator Rosamilia.
Motion to accept Senate Bill number 2223-37.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Yella.
We, the members of the student government at Utica of SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to update the CFP policies and procedures. I yield.
Do I have any discussion on this bill? CFB.
I just want to clarify for the Senate what, if you guys do not get a chance to thoroughly look over or understand why they're getting changed, the positions are getting revamped in a way so that way we have more engagement for the positions available. As you know, the chair is not filled yet. My position will remain until December when I graduate. So we are trying to get more members. We're trying to market to the people on campus who actually want the positions that actually directly relate to their major, whether it's business, whether it's CMD, whatever it may be. And smaller things like changing assistant chair to vice chair just to make it a little more professional per se. Assistant chair, if you ask me, I think it's a little weird. I don't feel like I'm an assistant. I am a vice chair, if you ask me, but that's my opinion. Otherwise, that's all I really had to say about that. I yield.
Do we have any discussion on this bill? Seeing none, we will. Oh, Senator Self.
Just to the roles that you guys have done to this. Is that what I'm hearing and seeing somewhat? I yield to CFB.
So what we did was we changed the positions a little so that way they're not as vague. So council members are still kind of council members, but we did event coordinators, so they focus solely on events, and then the chair and the vice chair help assist them. We had a media coordinator to focus on Instagram, Engage, and all that kind of stuff, so they're experts on handling the Engage aspect of everything. And then if I'm correct, we have like communications, so they're also going to be monitoring the communications amongst all clubs that CFA normally deals with. And I believe that's about everything. Secretary Wadsworth, if there's anything I didn't mention, please feel free to speak up. But otherwise, I yield.
Secretary Wadsworth.
So CFB kind of covered everything that we really did. One of the biggest things that we really wanted to help the clubs with this year was advertisement. So creating flyers, helping with events and getting that promotion out there, assisting them with the connections that they need, along with helping as a communications liaison between not only CFB and the clubs, but SGU as a whole in the clubs. We talked a little bit about some projects that we'd like to start next year with this new position. Possibly creating a group chat. I know that's got a lot of logistics and things that we need to work out, and some other projects that we're excited to work on. And we think that this position is going to be really great, and a great opportunity for some students to build their resume a little bit further. So I'll yield.
Do we have any further discussion on 2223-37? Seeing none, we will now move on to voting. We will not be voting. This is a new business. We will now be moving on to Bill 2223-31, Senator Schnorr.
Motion to accept Senate Bill number 2223-31.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Rosamilia.
We, the members of the student government at Utica of SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to make Wildcat Motorsports an organization.
Do we have any discussion on 2223-31? Our audience member.
I'm just kind of for any questions. I can also go over what was changed from last time. But yeah.
CFB.
My question is towards the audience member. Why do you feel that Baja should become an organization? What makes you guys think that you represent the entire student body and not just solely people that cater to motor vehicles and such? I yield.
Our audience member.
So for me personally, I feel for when it comes to people, we already wind up helping with a lot of Capstone and other groups that need help with their projects when it comes to stuff that they aren't learning in their majors. I also think that there are a lot of people that come to school and maybe they're going to computer science, but they like working on cars and like that type of stuff, so they are drawn to the club. We also plan on offering mandatory events that will involve the entire student body to help with things like learning how to change a tire or learning how to change your fluids and other events like that.
President Fish.
So you mentioned that you planned on doing events that would affect the students in general. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought today. What has stopped the club from doing this in the past? So why haven't we seen a tire changing event, a fuse changing event, stuff like that?
Mainly time and money. We spend a lot of time trying to fundraise and focus on building our car. But we have done SolidWorks events that are open to the public. We invite everyone to come to learn to use SolidWorks, whether they're mechanical engineering major or not. So it has been things we have done in the past, same with like the car show and other events similar to that.
CFB.
I'm just going to be a devil's advocate for a minute.
Go for it.
So you said that time was a big issue, why you guys couldn't put on these events. What's going to stop you guys from not saying that it's time in the future? Because I know you said that you're trying to cater to other people that may need that events, but what if most of the students on campus in the future don't really care for car stuff and they're just going to be like, well, I'll just go to mechanic and pay the money and be done with it? I yield.
Our audience member.
That's fair. We put in our constitution that we have mandatory events that we need to do. So it gives you guys the opportunity to make, so if we aren't keeping up with that, then you can make the argument that we can't be an org anymore. So it forces us to do those things.
President.
So with the funding, if we take out the $4,000, if we take out the money for stipends and the money for programming events, it leaves you with about $24,000 in total. And then if you think about the funding that both SGU and the club funding board can give you, it leaves you with about $14,000 of fundraising events. So I'm just curious. At $14,000, I understand is a lot of money, but it seems like most of this stuff is really stuff that we might not need. So prizes, lines, publicity, promotions, apparel, stipends. I just feel like some of you're just getting paid to do your club, if that makes sense.
Do we have any further discussion? CFB.
My also comment about the stipend is I read a little bit about why you guys have an assistant treasurer, but in my personal opinion, I don't see the point of having an assistant treasurer because most orgs only have a treasurer and that treasurer can handle their job fully. So why do you feel that as an org you would need an assistant treasurer? I yield.
The assistant treasurer is, I think from what I gathered, less about having someone to assist the treasurer and more about having a very smooth transition after the treasurer leaves, so that you have someone that already knows what's going on and doesn't have to relearn it all every single time.
President Fish.
So I want the Senate just to look at something real quick and look at it unbiasedly. So if we look at our budget that we just passed today, if you look at every single line, or if you look at every single org, all of the orgs have lines, and some varying to $20,000, $30,000, but each of these lines you can tell, you know what, Wildcat Esports is gaming equipment, and then they hold gaming events, right, that any student can go to. So I'd like to ask, how, as a student, am I going to use a suspension system or a brake system or a frame as a general student, right? And each of you have to ask yourselves that through not only the lens of an engineer, as most of you are, but the lens of a general student, of a sociology student, of a psych student, of a business student. How are they going to use the brakes? Are these going to be made public? So then if I need brakes, I can take them, or are they only used for the car?
Our secretary.
Ask a very general Baja question to our audience member. I have I don't speak cars. I don't weld. I don't have any interest in welding. What happens? So you build a new car every year, am I correct?
Yeah.
What happens to the car after you compete with it? Like after the one competition of the year is all done, or however many competitions, what happens to that car? I yield to our audience member.
It depends on the rules, but I believe it's the frame has to be rebuilt. So we're able to take some components off and reuse them, but after it goes to, I believe, 2 competitions, you have to replace, I think, like 75% of the car because it's a design competition. You have to redo the design. You can't just keep doing the same one every year. So we have one of the old ones that we plan on taking to a smaller comp doesn't have the same rules, and use it for more like a training tool, so people would come in and be able to learn and work on it. And then we have like an old frame that we are gonna scrap and then use the scrap for other projects.
Do we have any further discussion? Senator Self.
What the president said, equipment, under the equipment lines there, that just seems like it's going towards the vehicle itself. How would, if you say the tire changing event, if you do that, how will you be like demonstrating that without having your own like personal equipment? Like where will you be getting this equipment other than personal use? Because I know I got equipment sitting in the back of my car I can use anytime I need to in case of emergencies, but say a student lives on campus, doesn't have a car, how are they going to be getting that experience if they say you told them, hey, bring this equipment with you, or hey, someone will have it. Hopefully someone has it. I'm not saying you don't have it now. I'm just saying like in case there's like a worst case scenario, where's that changing kit for the tires, for example? I yield to our audience.
We have all the equipment to change a tire. We've got plenty of tools to do that stuff. My idea for a tire change event would be mainly we'd have one of our vehicles set up on stands. You'd come, we'd show you how to do it, so that way if you need to change a spare tire, you know how to use it with the tools in your vehicle. Also, most cars have all the necessary requirements to swap a spare tire.
Senator Gunter.
Push open forum back to 150.
I have a motion to push open forum back to 150. Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Rose Amelia. Do we have any discussion on pushing open forum back to 150? Seeing none, does anybody oppose unanimous consent to the motion? Senator Schnorr opposes. Seeing as that, we'll go on to voting. All those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain. That passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 603. 603 passes. 630, thank you. Do we have any further discussion on the bill? President Fish.
So you mentioned that every 2 years the equipment has to be replaced. So most of this stuff, the lifespan is a little bit more than 2 years. I know my car, my actual car, most of this stuff hasn't been replaced. Granted, it's making some noises now, so maybe we should make it an org. But so every 2 years, how are these being thrown away now? And I know you said they're being used as trainings, but they're just then collecting dust, and then after 6, 8, 10 years, now we have a stock of brakes, suspensions, frames, and so forth. So where are these going now? Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so let me clarify that the car needs to change. The components don't need to be like new components. It's about changing the design and how we build the car, just mainly like the frame and the structure of the car. So the main thing that would be changing is the roll cage and the material for that, because you can't really reuse that. But we can reuse brakes. We can reuse brake rotors and safety equipment. Safety equipment has its own lifespan. And same with electrical components. And we have used old components and reused stuff many times before, and we will continue to do that.
Secretary Wadsworth.
I have a question for our audience member. If we could give you all of the money in the world, if SGU could give you all the money, what besides finances would benefit you as an org?
It would be the insurance would be one thing, and then it would also be that we already wind up filling the role of helping people in the shop and providing a service there. So I feel that since we're already doing that role, I feel like we could, if we could lean into that, we'd be better for the school.
Our advisor.
The insurance,
Yeah, I know you are working.
it's not going to change.
It's not.
That's
Gonna
the
change.
problem.
Okay.
Doesn't matter if you're an org or you're a club. It's this.
Okay.
It's SGU's insurance is our issue currently. So I
Okay.
just want to make sure that that's not going to change.
Okay.
We're working on it. Your department's going to help with that. We're working on it. Mike is not to you. Fully support Baja. You know we've been down this path. My thing is for the Senate across the table. You heard me say this a couple weeks ago. I'm going to say it again as your advisor. Remember, I advise, so you can take it and leave it, or take it and consider it. The creation of taking clubs into orgs is going to create a have and a have-not system that you have to be prepared and ready for. If this club becomes an org and they take $30,000, what prevents BLASU, Golf Club, ISA, name it, to come do the same thing to you? So if you approve this one today, I implore you to put standards in place for review and promotion of clubs to orgs. This is not about Baja. I'm sponsoring your event on Saturday, okay? This is about the advisor who hopes to be in this seat long after you all graduate, okay? And I become your advisor if you sit at that table, okay? You do not have the funds to let every club become an org and get $30,000. You don't. Plain and simple. I implore you to consider the facts and implore you to figure out a different way to help this group to do their competitions. If it isn't for Oregon, your normal budget wouldn't be $30,000. It'd be a lot less. And the difference between what you can give now and that is about $5 to $10 grand. So you're opening up Pandora's box over $5,000 to $10,000. I yield.
President Fish.
So you mentioned that you can reuse most of the equipment except for the frame, which makes sense. So if you can reuse the equipment, that means in the next year when you redo this, when we redo this budget in the spring, that $8 grand wouldn't be there. So that would reduce that number down even more, because if you buy the materials now with the funds they have now, which is about $15,000, which is double what they need, then they can use it again next year, and then the year after that, as he stated, you can reuse it. So I'm curious as to how it's going to be sustainable if you can reuse some of the parts. Yeah, sorry.
So they are reusable, but they aren't infinitely reusable. And sometimes a design doesn't work at all, and you have to rework it. So new components are going to have to get purchased, but it's not going to be, like you said, where we just have like this stockpile of brakes that we replace every year for no reason.
Nobody's in new business. It is almost 1:50. We have one more minute of discussion. Just a reminder, our audience member.
I'd like to go off the point that the advisor made. Last year, every org had to trim money from their budget. I took $12,000 off the CFB budget last year. So it's like, where's the money coming from? You want to make sure that if you're going to promise them this money, which I think Baja's great, you got to make sure you can provide the money. I yield.
We will now be moving into open forum as it is 1:50. Do I have any discussion for open forum? Our audience member? Do you have discussion for open forum? Okay, CFB.
And that
Our audience member.
As I stated earlier in my report, I'm also going to state it as a student. There is the self-defense event being hosted tomorrow upstairs in the Fieldhouse MPR, 12 to 2. Stop by. Myself, my instructor, Thomas Arcuri, will be there having the event held for anyone to attend, staff, faculty, students, anyone can come to it. It may be slightly limited, but with him bringing some of our instructors from our school, he may be willing to increase the size. But also finding out that we can only fit about 50 people into that NPR, it's going to be kind of limited. I wasn't able to meet with him this week due to my own concerns of classes, so I could not meet with him to discuss more information. So it's going to be a hot box tomorrow. But to give a little detailed list, we will be doing some basic self-defense, so like a push, someone throwing a punch, a grab, possibly a bear hug. I recommend if you do come, wear comfortable pants, because if we do this won't be guaranteed, as it may change. If we do anything grounded, such as a tactical get-up, I don't want someone to accidentally drag their leg across the floor. I know how much it hurts to get a wood burn, a rug burn. In case we do something like that, I recommend comfortable pants. So don't wear jeans. If you do, wear something that's flexible. I got cargos. They work for me. But if you want to wear something nice and flexible, make sure you can work around in it. Because if you wear tight jeans, it's going to be hard to move around. Thank you.
Do I have any further JFish?
So, the moment that you've all been waiting for, the election results. So, with a total amount of voters of 205, with a number of 1,938 students, I can say that we have hit our mark. So the election results are as follows. The Constitution has been approved via a vote of, you have to write this down. The Constitution has been approved by a vote of 194 to 11. The Chief Justice, Lucas Nolan, received 181 votes and 24 noes. College Council Representative Nicholas Rossi received 135 votes with 30 no votes. The treasurer candidate, Logan Self, received 178 votes and 27 noes. The vice presidential candidate, Ava Fees, got 173 votes with 32 noes. And the presidential candidate, Bailey Wadsworth, did not get elected. I'm kidding. Got 184 votes and 21 noes. So congratulations, everyone who is elected.
Thank you.
At this time, I'm just going to ask our pro temp, because our Chief Justice isn't here, just to confirm the numbers that I've said, if you want to just confirm those numbers for me and certify the election. Read it back out. Yeah, you can refresh the page too to make sure that. All right.
Okay. Bailey Wadsworth received 184 yeses and 21 noes. Ava Feast received 173 yeses and 32 noes. Logan Self received 178 yeses and 27 noes. Nicholas Rossi received 175 yeses and 30 noes. Lucas Nolan received 181 yeses and 24 noes. And our Constitution received 194 yeses and 11 noes.
Do you confirm the election?
I confirm the election.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
So your 2-week training period will start today and tomorrow. I'll be training all of you. 2 of you already know your positions. Logan and 3 of you know, and Logan and Lucas, I'll find a time and meet with all of you together. So congratulations again.
Do we have any other discussion for open forum? Our advisor.
there's just a lot happening on campus. I know it's busy with your finals for seniors who want to graduate. The one thing I want to mention that isn't publicly announced yet is our senior send-off week, which will include bowling. It'll include a DIY night here in the NPR with flights from Utica Coffee and Roasters and a big grazing charcuterie board type thing. We will have a champagne brunch toast, so that's exciting to get to announce that there will be a senior champagne toast and lunch on May 5th. So look for your emails for more information. I'll have to check Engage. Watch for our emails. I mean, every weekend there is something between Frag Fest and the next weekend with the competition and Logan Sing on Friday and the car show and Carnival Day and I mean the Spring Fest, and the list is vast. So I encourage you to use your student activity fee money to go out and get the free stuff, the free food, but also the entertainment and the connection. Thanks.
Senator Rosamil, or are you speaking as an audience member or as a senator?
As a student.
Okay, as a student or audience member.
I would just like to say, like, one last thing about there is an option going back on the whole the budget thing and on clubs becoming organizations. I think you're pretty much like allowed to have clubs work together and maybe have a budget for like those combination of clubs. So that's just the only thing I was gonna say. Are you?
Our president.
I think you make a good point. You can definitely come to me or CFB and we can work out something for that. Thank you.
Do we have any further discussion for open forum? Seeing none, we will now move into swear-ins. Anybody being sworn in? Would that include executive officer? Okay. Anybody being sworn in today?
Execs get sworn in on the 27th.
Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn from Senator Gunter. Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Yella. Do we have any discussion on adjournment? Seeing none, does anybody oppose unanimous consent to adjournment? Seeing none, the motion passes and we are adjourned at 1:58.